We are a podcast led by young people for young people and speaking decision makers who make decisions on the youth's behalf. Now, we made this podcast, me and Clara, for many reasons. But the one reason was to make young people feel welcome in our society and politics, and that they can achieve anything. Yeah. Clara, I'm going to hand over to you.
Cool. I'm Carrera. As Cody kind of already mentioned, this podcast, I guess, is just kind of like inform young people about like politics and kind of how they can get involved, and how to make sure that your voices are actually being heard. So, Cody, I've got a little question for you.
Yeah, go on.
I'm going to go right in.
Yeah.
How do you feel when decision makers listen to your voice?
Oh, that is a very good question, Clara. I feel the fact that my voice is listened to, and it's a feeling that I never actually felt before until I was actually properly listened to, and it's amazing. Whatever you say to a council or to an MP or to any politician or any decision maker in that fact, and they take it on and actually do it, you can see your work done. And that feeling is just amazing.
Yeah. I agree.
So I've actually got an opposite question, Clara. How do you feel when politicians don't listen to you?
Heartbroken. I'll say it simply. It's kind of heartbreaking because I feel like we are young people, like we are literally like the next generation.
Yeah.
Like what we want to see in our future, we kind of have to advocate for and fight for to make sure that we kind of have a future that we want and we want to live in. So it's kind of like, it's a little bit disappointing when politicians and decision makers aren't listening to what young people want, because obviously it feels like our future is kind of being taken away from us.
Yeah, I totally understand.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important that like young people get involved. So like you said, like when your voice feels heard, it feels absolutely incredible. I think that's why it's important that young people get involved so that everyone kind of feels that way, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that many young people don't realise they're not being listened to. And it's crazy.
It is, because like if you think about how like political activism, like in like I suppose a broader sense, like not necessarily relating to young people, but like when there is political activism in the world and change actually happens, it's crazy. Like I did an EPQ, and sorry, it's a little bit off topic, but I did an EPQ and it was about the gender gap, and then I did like some further reading from it, and it was about like the paternity leave, and people were like advocating for a longer paternity leave window. And the fact that it actually happened afterwards, it was like, well, if adults' voices are listened to, young people's voices should also be listened to.
That is very fair.
I think that's why it's really important for people to get involved and like understand the importance of political activism. Yeah.
So in your experience, what have you done in the sector of politics?
Oh, a lot. Not that much. Stuff like school councils, like I think just to start, like stuff like school councils, house council, like a local youth council, or kind of any kind of activist groups, I think are good things that I've done that have helped me launch myself into the political world a little bit. Because like you need a starting point. And I think like that starting point for a lot of people, like including myself, is that school council or like a little committee thing in school. Like, oh, there's an event, but we've got to talk to the teachers and we've got to get that permission for this and that. And then when they give you that permission, it's always like, oh my God, like, yay, this this is great. And I think
it's that sense of a joy, really.
Yeah,
like,
it is,
like your stuff's actually getting done. And many young people, in my experience, don't understand how they could get things done. And that's the thing that is really a shame, because a lot of people have great ideas, especially young people.
Literally.
And it's a shame to see those ideas go. And if they knew what to do, you never know where we could be right now.
Literally. And I think like you said, so many young people have ideas. And I think they don't, sometimes I don't think they realize like the impact that their ideas could have on like the future of like, if it's a school council thing, like how it could literally change their school. And I feel like they don't realize that. And I think maybe that's potentially it's just because in the past they haven't been able to see that kind of like success with like young people's voices being heard. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's like I first started getting involved at a very young age in my student council, a bit like you, Crow. And it, for me, when I first joined, it was amazing. I struggled at first to understand why we're doing it, because I think that's the question a lot of young people face is why? Why should it be them to do it and not the adults? But then I went through all my primary school years, I've been elected in student council all through primary. I was that dedicated. And then in secondary, I got elected on to their student council. And then it came to one day, my teacher came to us with a letter from Milton Keynes Council saying that the Milton Keynes Youth Council elections are coming up. And for those who not know, that is my local youth council that portrays getting young people involved and giving them the best opportunities to reach decision makers. And I was like, oh, do I go for it? And what do you think I went for, Crow?
Oh, I think you did it. I think you did. And I think I think that's so important because it's like I don't really know how much like other kind of areas across England and across the world do this, but it's like you mentioned, from like the age of young people in primary schools, they need to get people involved. Like I studied in India and we had like, I literally forgot what it's called again, but like we kind of had like a little student council, but like a primary version. And then the secondary was like, because it was like primary all the way up to like year 13. So you had kind of the primary being like, and then you had like the secondary ones and you'd have like vice captains, house president, school president. And it was really good because from that young age, I think a lot of people stayed in that school all the way through. So it's like, you kind of like from that young age, you have that involvement in it. Like schools are always encouraging you to get involved. And I think we need to see more of that from so many more schools. And if you're not in school and if you're like homeschooled or you're educated or trained outside, I think whatever realm you're in, I think it's so important to get involved just because it is your future. Do you know what I mean? Like it is literally your future. So if you don't get involved, you're kind of like missing out on shaping your own future, I suppose.
So, Claire, I've got a question.
Oh, okay.
And that question is that how do I describe it?
That's so real.
Why did you get involved?
Oh.
Like.
Oh, do you know what?
Is there a story behind it or?
I actually don't think there is. Like, it's gonna be a really long-winded answer. I think I just kind of like I mentioned, like in my old school in India, they had stuff like a little student council or whatever in primary. And I think I got involved in that because we'd have like house captains, vice captains. And then like, I just really enjoyed it.
It's that
like,
sense of
it's like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like I'm organizing things for the students in school. And I found that really fun. And then I think then I moved to England like post-COVID and I was like, I literally remember complaining to my parents. I was like, there's nothing here. Like there's no MUN, which is like the Model United Nations debate. There's no like round square, which is like another inter-school thing. And I got really annoyed. And then like my friend was like, oh, there's this like youth cabinet council thing. Like, I don't know, I do it, but you can also join it if you want. And I was like, okay. And I was a bit skeptical because I was like, whenever she would tell me about it, I would be like, this doesn't sound like my type of thing. And then I just kind of like, I applied. And I think that's the first step. I just applied and it was fun. So I continued. Like it was fun. And then like I think actually seeing the change that we make locally and how that can impact people nationally as well. Like if we can do it locally, best believe young people can do it nationally. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. It's nice. It's a nice little like thing to kind of keep you going, I suppose.
Why do you think young people struggle to get involved? What do you think is the biggest barrier?
I think Oh, that's good. I think it's that young people sometimes don't really know where to start, or they're like, oh, politics, like that's so boring.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? I think there's a big like misconception or like myth around what like being involved in like different councils and political stuff is. Because I feel like if I wasn't involved in any of this and someone came up to me and was like, oh, there's this council, do you want to join? I'd be like, council? I'm not what do you mean? Like that's not my thing. And I think like because of that, there's such a like, I don't know if stigma is the right word to use here, but I feel like there is a bit of stigma around like being involved in politics and being involved in a council. So I think that's a huge barrier. And I also just think some people don't know how to get involved. Do you know what I mean? Like I think people just don't realize the opportunities, or they don't know about the opportunities that are available to them, either like in school, outside school, locally, like nationally, with like huge national campaigns, like with like the British Youth Parliament and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people don't know.
It's the advertisement, I think I can say from it is like, unless I got that letter to join my local youth council, I would not have known that existed. And it's been the best 2 years of my life, I must be honest.
It's really good.
And it's, I think for me, I do understand why young people don't. And that is because like, even when I told my teacher, I want to go join student council or my local youth council or be head boy or something or anything to do with politicalness, I've always had the same reaction. Oh, politics. It's never been, oh yes, you can do it. It's been that bit of why.
Yeah.
And then it kind of sets you back. And I think if you're setting every young person back, they could be the next prime minister.
Yeah,
for all we know.
Literally.
And I think it is so sad to see young people not get involved in that way. And my biggest thing I always say to anyone, if any young person's struggling or anything, politics is the best solution for them. Because it distracts you massively. And you don't even realise you're distracted because you're helping people. And I think helping people is what gets other people happy.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I'm just going to jump onto the last point you made about helping people. I think that helping people actually helps yourself. That sounds so cheesy. It sounds so corny. It sounds so cringe, but it's so true. Like, trust, like when I kind of like joined like my school council or like the youth council or anything, I was like, it's like, this has helped me so much. Like, I remember when I first like joined kind of stuff like this, I wasn't like, I've always done drama. So I've always been all right with performing. Yeah. But if you ask me to stand up in front of people and deliver a speech, I would not do it. Like, I'm sorry, it was not going to happen. But now, like, I feel so confident. Like, if you're like, I need you to go talk to like a group of 20 people about why tennis is a really good sport, like something really niche, something really random, I know that I've now got the skills to be able to talk about that, even though it's not something I'm a specialist in. I don't know anything about sports, but I could still talk about it. Does that make sense? I don't know. Yeah. So it's like, it's helpful, I think. And
then kind of on that, do you think politics is it comes off interesting to young people?
Ooh.
Especially like the traditional politics that everyone, when they hear politics, they think of, like the House of Commons, the Prime Minister, the Cabinet, government. What do you think it comes off to young people that way?
I think it comes off as this is going to sound really straightforward, but I think a lot of young people see it as quite boring. I think, and I don't know what it is. Like, I think, no, in some sense, I think young people get really involved. Yeah. Like, I know like some of my friends and me, we have conversations about like, I don't know, like the US elections or like something that's going on like worldwide. But I feel like majority of young people, including myself sometimes as well, I'm just like, oh, that's so long. And I think it's just to do with the media representation of it, to be honest.
Yeah,
but like,
no, I agree.
I think it does just come across as a little bit boring, but it's also interesting because you do see young people like on social media having like conversations about it or like talking about it or advocating for something that they believe in.
And actually, we're now in a time of age where I'm very happy to be alive in, where young people are actually getting elected for stuff and actually starting to get their name in. Yeah. For the first time ever, we've got a MP that is actually 21 years old, I believe. Don't fact check me on that. But it's a very young age to be an MP, member of Parliament.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
It's stuff like, what's very inspiring for me is Milton Keynes is on lead to have the youngest mayor of Milton Keynes, and it's things like that. It's like, how, for me seeing now, I know it's possible for me.
Yeah.
And he's only 30 years old. I'm not gonna out him, but he's only 30 years old, and he's now in the next year he's going to be mayor of Milton Keynes. And for another example, we've got Shanika, who's a cabinet member for Milton Keynes City Council, that is a cabinet member for innovation and AI and culture and all that. She is one of the youngest councillors. That is just amazing that you can actually do that at that age.
I think like when young people see other young people like involved, and when I like as in like younger than the majority of kind of people who tend to be involved, or what people think is a like quote unquote target audience for politics, I think it's like you said, it's quite inspiring, because it's like I love this like kind of work. Like I love helping people and organizing things. I love it so much. And I think like knowing that I can see myself, even if it's not what I decide to do with my life, but knowing that I can see myself in that kind of like job if I wanted it is really inspiring, I think.
Yeah. So would you be the next Prime Minister, Carrera?
Oh no. I don't think I could handle it. I think that's a bit too big of a job. But
what is your message to Keir Starmer, our new Prime Minister, to get young people involved? Sorry to put you on the spot, Carrera.
Just encourage young people, I think. Just encourage more young people to get involved and make sure that their voices are heard. Because I think that's like, it sounds really basic, but I think that's just like, that's the truth. Like, I think a lot of young people, maybe they just don't know like that they can get involved. Like we were mentioning earlier, they just probably don't even know that that kind of thing exists for them. So I think spreading more awareness about the different things that young people can do to get involved in like politics or decision making or debating, even like just like those transferable skills. Yeah. That's
Have you got a question for me, Crow?
I do. I was going to ask you the same question actually. What would you say is your message?
My message to Keir Starmer would be to understand why they're not getting involved at first. Because I think as Prime Minister, you need a good understanding of why and what's the barriers. Yeah. And when you understand the barriers, you know how to cure the barriers. And I think the one thing he'll come up with is the same with us. It's boring.
Yeah.
I think that he knows it himself, that politics nowadays, traditionally, can be boring. And I get it is moving into an age where young people are getting more involved, but it's going a bit too slow.
Yeah. I think just like, I want to hop onto your point again. But I think like you said, like, I forgot what I was going to say now. Oh, it's moving slow. Yeah. Like, more young people are getting involved. More young people are getting involved. Like, there's no doubt in that. I think there is now a little bit more awareness on like you can get involved. This is something you can do. But at the same time, I feel like there's equally people who just have no clue, or like they have no interest because, like we've said, they just think it's boring. Yeah. So I think like maybe having the young people young people who are already involved, having them kind of like show other young people and get other young people involved themselves. Because I feel like if I hear something coming from like you, for example, I'm way more likely to get involved than if like my parents told me, or like if like a teacher at school told me. Because like to me as a young person, it would be like, oh, they just want me to do this other thing again. But it's like if like my friend is telling me, it's like, wait, it might be fun, because why would my friend tell me to do something boring? Do you know what I mean?
No, I totally agree with that. And I've lost my point. I think going back to what your point is young people are getting involved. And I think that is positive. And it's amazing that they are. But I just think there could be more.
Yeah.
And I will always say, I mean, anything could be more, I guess. But it's just the fact that it's possible, and I know it's possible. for a lot of young people as well, as I didn't know, and you will agree, is our Milton City Council, they are the nicest people I've ever met.
Yes.
We are not sponsored by them anyway, but they are so nice. And I feel so welcome actually walking into a council. As a young person, that is a good step in politics.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm not going to lie to you. If I, it's going to sound really mean. If I didn't know that the youth council existed, I probably would never enter that council building.
Yeah.
Just because why do I need to go there? Do you know what I mean? But I think like, you know how you can literally be a guest at a council meeting? I didn't know that until I was a part of a youth council or a school council. I literally didn't know that was something I could do. And then I think because of that, and because we know the people who work there, we're kind of friendly with them, it's quite nice for us to actually go there. So I think that maybe that friendliness, just spread it. You just spread it, spread the joy.
It definitely is the friendliness. And like you say, it's the feeling that you just find out something when you join it. And it's a good feeling.
It's great.
And you got any questions for me, Cara?
Not currently. No, I'm joking. How did you get involved actually? Because you asked me earlier and I never asked you. How did you get involved?
So I started with, I was actually very bored. And I one day speak to my teacher, I'm like, oh, I actually don't like what the school's doing with this policy.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, if you've got something to say about it, join the student council. So that's what I went on to do. And then I actually got that policy removed.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. See, young people's voices are listened to.
And it's nice to know that, because I think a lot of young people get misunderstood with getting angry in school about policies. But getting angry won't get you anywhere with dealing with them personally.
I agree. I agree with that.
And the only way, because there's two ways I think of it, is there's always a child that skips lessons and that doesn't bother in school because they do not like a certain policy. On the other hand, me and student council, I will have a higher chance to remove that policy because I am friendly with my head teacher and I know where the line stands with getting it removed. It's like a game. I always call politics a game. You've got to play the game, and it's a bit like a chessboard where you've got to move up and down. And to get your way, you need to play it very smart.
Yeah.
And I think we both know that.
Yeah. And I agree with that, because I feel like you said, like students potentially that might not be there for a lesson or something. I feel like for them, maybe it's because they don't actually think they can, that what they're saying is going to be taken seriously, because they're to be fair, if I wasn't involved in this and if I didn't realize that young people's voices would actually be taken into account and all that kind of stuff, I think my first thought would also just be, it doesn't matter what I say because I don't make that decision anyways.
That is the big excuse I hear.
So it's I feel like maybe getting rid of that and then having more of actually, if you want to say something, you can tell us, just come and join our student council or talk to the student council or something like that. So people know, but yeah, I think it's important that young people get involved, just overall in kind of all aspects, not just in school and education. But yeah.
So yeah, well, that was our first episode of the Youth in Politics podcast, and thank you to everyone that tuned in, and tune into the next one.
Stay tuned.
Thank you.
Thank you.